Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Cavs Cast Bobby Talks Believeland. I'm your host, Bobby Chapman. We are a part of a larger network called The Bounce that consists of 30 podcasts, one covering each NBA team. As you might have been able to guess, here on Cavs Cast, we'll be covering the Cleveland Cavaliers. So what does that mean exactly? Well, every week from now until the end of the NBA season, I'll be on air at least twice a week, talking everything Cavs on and off the court. So before we jump right into the basketball side of things, let me just say what a perfect time this podcast is starting at. When I named the podcast Bobby Talks Believeland, I was a little bit hesitant to include Believeland in there because I thought, hey, the Cavs postseason run was great, but it was a while ago now, and maybe the whole Believeland thing is running out of steam. I know there was that 30 for 30 on ESPN entitled Believeland, but after that, it seemed to lose a little bit of buzz. But now, as I'm watching the Cleveland Indians go on an incredible run in the postseason in the MLB, all the way to the World Series, Believeland has really been revitalized. So we are seeing once again, Cleveland has sort of become the center of the sports universe, as it was last summer when the Cavs won the championship. And just the other night, we are able to see an incredible night in Cleveland, where at the Q, the Cavs raise their championship banner, get their rings, and they pound on the Knicks for the first game of their NBA season whilst launching their campaign to defend their title. And just next door, the Cleveland Indians are beating the Cubs 6-0 in Game 1 of the World Series to take a 1-0 lead. So Cleveland is really a buzz right now. Great place to be, great place for sports, and I couldn't be more excited to be talking about Cleveland for the next few months. So let's get into the basketball. We all remember what happened last year. The Cavs go down 3-1 in the finals to the Warriors. Everyone's talking doomsday scenarios. Is their window to win a championship closing? What does this mean? Is Kevin Love going to be traded? Is LeBron James done winning championships? And then just like that, they turn it around. They come back from 3-1 in a great series in an even better Game 7. LeBron gets that monster block on Iguodala. Uncle Drew, Kyrie Irving, hits that three in Curry's eye. They win the game, win the title. J.R. Smith takes off his shirt, doesn't put it back on for the next 3 months, and really just great times in Cleveland for the whole summer. But a lot happened over the summer, basketball-wise, so let's talk about that a little bit. Let's start out with some losses that the Cavs had via free agency. The first guy that they lost that I'd like to touch on here is Timothy Mozgov. Now, Mozgov, not a real important player for the Cavs, not losing a lot there on the basketball side of things. He goes and signs with the Lakers a 4-year, $63 million contract, which, if you ask me, I think that's way too much money. I think the Lakers really are just overpaying for a guy who, at best, is a solid role player. Really not what I expected to see, honestly, coming from the Lakers after they get out from under that Kobe Bryant contract with him retiring, which really ended up being a bad contract for them in the end. They free up all this cap space, and it seems they're just throwing money at anyone, even Timothy Mozgov. Now, that's not to bash on Mozgov. He was a solid player for the Cavs. I remember in the finals 2 years ago when they had all those injuries. Remember Love went down with the shoulder injury against the Celtics in the first round of the playoffs. So Mozgov stepped up and he really started to get some minutes. And he didn't play bad. He was a solid fill-in. He did his job. He held his own in there. He started to score a little bit. And that's how he gained a little bit of relevance. And he got some minutes, some playing time this year, but not a ton. He averaged 6.3 points per game, just above 4 rebounds. And really, I don't think the Cavs are going to miss him here. He barely played at all in the postseason last year, and they really are pretty deep at center. They got Kevin Love, they have Tristan Thompson, they have Channing Frye, other big men like Richard Jefferson, so they're pretty much set with big men. And I don't think they're going to miss Timothy Mozgov a whole lot here. Another guy we saw leave via free agency was Matthew Dellavedova. He signs a 4-year, $38.4 million deal with the Bucks. Now, again, when we're talking Dellavedova, not a whole lot on the basketball side of things that you're missing out on there. He averaged 7.5 points a game, just above 4 assists. But this is a guy who really had become a fan favorite in Cleveland. And it is sad to see him go, because just like Mozgov in the finals 2 years ago, after an injury, Dellavedova stepped up, and even more so than Mozgov, Dellavedova really made a splash. He instantly became a fan favorite. He's running all over the place in that finals series, jumping on loose balls, also plays left and right. He plays pretty good defense on Steph Curry, really, which that's, I think, hands down the best offensive player in the league. And you just get thrown into the NBA Finals having to play defense on that. Really tough. And Dellavedova did a pretty good job of it. Curry wasn't a huge factor in that series. They did lose, but Dellavedova kind of had an emergence in that series. And he was a solid backup point guard. And then when you couple him leaving, going to play for the Bucks, and then Mo Williams, the Cavs' other backup point guard, announcing his retirement, suddenly it's a dicey situation in the backcourt for the Cavs. Because Mo Williams was a pretty good piece too. I mean, he was a veteran guy. You knew you could trust him. You knew when you needed him, when Kyrie needed a rest, if he got injured, you could plug Mo Williams in there, and he'd be solid for you. He could score in spurts, and he wasn't going to make any mistakes. He was a guy you could trust, veteran leadership, good guy to have in the locker room. But all of a sudden, we look up with him and Dellavedova leaving, and the Cavs don't have a backup point guard. So what that brings me to is some of the additions that the Cavs had this offseason. And the first guy I want to talk about is this rookie, Kay Felder. Now, Felder was not a highly recruited player out of high school. He wasn't a very well-known college player. He played his college basketball at the University of Oakland in the WAC conference, and no one really knew who he was. He went in the second round. The Cavs traded for him on draft day. I'll admit I had no idea who the guy was until I looked him up. But I went and watched his highlight tape, which, yes, I know it can be skewed. It isn't always the best representation of a player because they're literally picking and choosing their best plays. But I also watched this guy in the preseason, and Kay Felder looks pretty exciting. We'll have to see how he develops, but this kid looks like he's got a lot of potential. Very explosive. He can score. He can facilitate. And he just is really exciting to watch. He's 5'9". He's shorter than me, for God's sake. And he recorded the second highest vertical in combine history, 44 inches. So the guy can jump over 3.5 feet, which is huge, and it really shows. He's an exciting player. He's got that something special. And I think you give him a little time, a couple of years to develop, and he could really develop into a great player for the Cavs. So it'll be interesting to see how he looks going forward. Tyronn Lue came out in the media a few days ago and named Kay Felder the backup point guard, which is good. But then the other night against the Knicks in the Cavs season debut, he didn't play because of an injury. So I'm excited to see this kid play for the first time, excited to see how he comes out of the gate here, and I think he's one to watch going forward. Another new guy to the roster I should mention is Jordan McRae. Not as high as an upside as Kay Felder, but there is some upside there. For those of you who remembered him, he played his college basketball at the University of Tennessee. He's a two-guard, so he probably won't get as many minutes. He's playing behind J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert, who are integral parts of this team. But he's another guy to watch going forward. Again, he's got potential to possibly be something special. He graduated a couple years ago. He's been floating around in the D-League. But he's a good scorer, and he's exciting to watch. Him and Felder are both guys that you see flashes of brilliance in their play. So if they can refine that and kind of just develop and get better and better going forward, they could become interesting players. Now, I have to get to the big signing of the offseason, or at least I think it's the big one, and that's Mike Dunleavy. Now, I know this isn't a huge signing, nothing compared to Kevin Durant or other big signings like that, but Mike Dunleavy is a very good shooter. Last year, he shot 39% from three. The year before that, he shot over 40% from three. And in this league, especially today, you need good shooters. You need guys who can knock down a three. Because what we're seeing around the league is that the game is changing a little bit. With things like what the Warriors are doing, you're seeing more and more teams start to focus on three-point shooting and perimeter play. Now, I don't want to say that other teams are trying to copy what the Warriors are doing and become jump shooting teams, but teams are finding themselves having to get better and better at shooting the three just so that they can keep up with teams like that. Because people are starting to realize, I think, that you can't just trade twos for threes all games and expect to win the game like that. It just doesn't work. It doesn't add up. So as a result, what we're seeing, even big men coming up, guys like Karl Anthony Towns, who's a center, Guys like Kristaps Porzingis out in New York, who's a power forward. They can play outside. They can knock down threes. They can dribble the ball on the perimeter. So the game is changing. It's becoming more and more focused on the three ball. And Mike Dunleavy is a guy who's definitely going to help the Cavs shoot the three. And arguably, part of the reason they were able to be so successful in the postseason last year and go on that incredible run to win a championship is because they shot the three so well. I mean, if you go back and look at the statistics, they actually shot the three better than the Warriors. They really did beat them at their own game. So Mike Dunleavy, big signing in my opinion. Again, not a superstar player, but a guy who's really going to help them out in shooting, which has become a bigger and bigger part of the game. So another addition, or not exactly addition per se, but a guy they kept was Richard Jefferson. Richard Jefferson, like Mo Williams, initially, after the Cavs won the championship, came out and said that he was going to retire. And by the way, if you haven't followed Richard Jefferson on Snapchat, go follow him. He's a great follow. He has a lot of locker room stuff, a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, team bonding moments that you just don't see in mainstream media. So go give him a follow. You won't regret it, I promise. But Richard Jefferson doesn't give you a lot, and he's not a great basketball player. He doesn't give you a ton on the court. He's a solid guy, good veteran to have, definitely a great locker room guy. What I think he brings mostly is chemistry. I think he really helps the chemistry of this team. If you watch things like his Snapchat stories, if you listen to interviews, everybody loves the guy. He's great to have around, and he really just kind of meshes this team and helps them gel together. If you watched his Snapchat stories all last season, and especially in the postseason, the Cavs, who supposedly had issues with chemistry. Remember, we heard all that stuff with maybe LeBron and Kevin Love not getting along and the chemistry not being there, the team not meshing well. We heard all that, but then as they're going on these runs, as they're getting better and better, as they're starting to figure things out, you're seeing behind the scenes with Richard Jefferson and the Cavs in the locker room really just looking like a bunch of guys who are friends, who love each other, who are working hard for each other, and just want to go out and have fun. And when you have that, when you have people all buying into the same thing and just having fun with it, that's when you get the potential for something special to happen. And obviously, as we saw last season, something special did happen, and it led to a championship for the Cavs. So Richard Jefferson, great guy to have in the locker room, brings a lot to the table. I was glad to see him come back for another year. Now, another guy who was kept from the Cavs was J.R. Smith. And this was one of the bigger stories of the offseason. So we see this whole saga. Of course, it gets dramatized in the media. J.R. Smith was a free agent, and he has this contract dispute with the Cavs. He's late to training camp, doesn't show up for the first week or so, and the media is making a big deal out of it. Is J.R. Smith going to go somewhere else? What are the Cavs doing? What's going on here? But really, it always felt like both sides wanted J.R. Smith in Cleveland. He wanted to play for the Cavs wanted him to stay. They just couldn't agree on a number. So we saw something really interesting happen because LeBron James, after one of the Cavs training sessions at training camp, was talking to the media, and J.R. Smith came up. And if you didn't hear this story, LeBron basically came out and said, well, we're missing a huge part of our team right now. He said, we need to get this deal done so that we can have this guy back because we are an incomplete team right now, and JR is my guy. I want to have him here. This is one of my big guns, he said, and he's got to be here. So basically what I took from that is that LeBron James was sending a kind of warning to Cavs management saying, hey, you better sign this guy. And the funny thing is that clip of LeBron James's interview with the media on that subject surfaced on Friday, September 30th, and then just 2 weeks later, on October 14th, lo and behold, J.R. Smith and the Cavs agree on a 4-year, $57 million deal. Now, it almost seems like the Cavs saw LeBron James come out and say this in the media, say, we need to get this deal done now, and they said, holy crap, we need to re-sign J.R. Smith. Almost as if the Cavs are afraid of LeBron James and went and scrambled and did everything they could to sign J.R. Smith right when LeBron said it. And to me, that really makes sense because First of all, why wouldn't you be afraid of LeBron James? I personally think that when he wants to be, he can be absolutely terrifying. But especially if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, without LeBron James, have absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. If LeBron James decides ever that he's unhappy in Cleveland and wants to leave, as we saw the first time he did that when he left for Miami, you have absolutely nothing. The Cavs were bottom feeders, struggled at the bottom of the Eastern Conference for the 4 years that LeBron was gone, and then he comes back as the prodigal son, and 2 years later, bam, championship. So the Cavaliers truly do live and die by LeBron James. And so when he comes out and says, we need to re-sign J.R. Smith, you better re-sign J.R. Smith. And they did just that, so you got to give them credit there. Keeping LeBron James happy, hey, do what you got to do. So that was an interesting storyline to follow in the offseason. And another storyline that really caught my eye this offseason, really got me thinking, was Tyronn Lue talking about LeBron James's minutes this year, talking about his playtime. And he came out in an interview and he said that one thing he really wants to focus on during the regular season this year is limiting LeBron's minutes. He said, hey, LeBron's 31 years old. I got to get him as much rest as I can. And it's true. Tyronn Lue is definitely right. I think this is a great idea. You really do have to limit LeBron James's minutes. Look, I know 31 years old is not exactly an old man. I know that. But we also have to remember that LeBron James did come into the league directly out of high school. So he's got a few more years on his belt than you might think. And also, the way he plays basketball is very physically demanding. He's not a guy like Steph Curry who's hitting threes, long shots, running around on the perimeter. He is driving into the paint nearly every time he gets the ball, getting fouled hard, getting beat up on, and that definitely takes a toll on your body. So we saw Popovich do this for years with Duncan. We saw the Warriors not do it, not rest their guys at the end of last season when they were pursuing that record. And they got the record, but then in the playoffs, they really did not play like themselves. They really were not the Golden State Warriors that we saw for the entirety of the regular season. And I'm not saying that not resting their players directly led to that, but I think it'd be foolish to think that it didn't have some impact. So Tyronn Lue definitely does need to get LeBron some rest. Because LeBron James, when you look at him in the playoffs, he has another gear, an entirely different level that we do not see in the regular season. The kind of dominance that we saw from LeBron in the finals, where he leads both teams in nearly every thinkable statistic, we don't really see that in the regular season. Now, I know he's a great player all the time, but in the regular season, when you're playing the Boston Celtics on a Tuesday night, LeBron James isn't going to be the same LeBron James playing the Warriors in Golden State Game 7 of the finals. He has to be reserved. He has to be limited in the regular season so that he can be so great, so that he can bring out that other level in the playoffs. And as a consequence of that, I don't think we'll see LeBron James win another MVP. I really don't. I think, especially this year, we're going to see a guy like Russell Westbrook, a guy like James Harden, guys that really have to do everything for their team in the regular season and can't hold anything back, have to do everything, have to be the man just to get their team to the playoffs. LeBron doesn't have to do that. He doesn't. Come playoff time, LeBron's going to be chilling out in the Eastern Conference with a great record saying, all right, yep, I'm ready for playoffs. While Westbrook and Harden are fighting for 9th, 8th seeds in the Western Conference. So I think you're going to see guys like that who have to carry their team, if nothing else but for statistic inflation. Those are the type of guys I think you're going to see win MVP this year. I don't think Curry's as likely to win it that now that he has Kevin Durant there, in addition with Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. There's only so many points to go around. So I just think that while Curry and Durant might play very well together, and I really think they will, I think they'll end up having a great team out there, a great run, and I think they have the potential to maybe turn into a dynasty, but I think at minimal you're going to see a slight decrease in stats for those two, both Curry and Durant. But with LeBron James maybe taking a step back in the regular season, what does that mean for Kyrie Irving? I found myself wondering as I saw what Tyronn Lue said, does this mean that Kyrie Irving shoulders more of a workload in the regular season? And I really think it does. And I think what we saw the other night with Kyrie's performance against the Knicks, I think that was the start of that. And if you watched the game, you heard the broadcasters talking about how Tyronn Lue and LeBron James had mentioned Kyrie Irving sort of stepping up and taking the reins offensively. And Kyrie drops 29 points. He looks absolutely fantastic on opening night against the Knicks. In the third quarter, the guy was just a nightmare. He's hitting threes, driving and finishing, facilitating for other guys. The Knicks just could not handle it. He was fantastic. And with LeBron maybe taking a step back, I think we're going to see Kyrie Irving have a monster season. And I think a lot of that was from confidence that he got in the postseason run last year. Because he was kind of in LeBron's shadow, as he well should have been, because LeBron, as we talked about, is incredible in the postseason. But Kyrie Irving, semi-quietly, had an incredible, great postseason. I think that Curry really established himself as one of the best players in this league in the playoffs last year. So look for a huge year out of Kyrie Irving. Now, another big storyline from the offseason that started a lot of conversation was started by Dwayne Wade. So if you didn't see it, though I'm sure you did by now, Dwayne Wade, in an interview with the media, was asked about LeBron James and Michael Jordan, which these days in sports has become a very, very popular topic of conversation. Now, you have to remember, we all know that Dwayne Wade and LeBron James are boys. They're very tight, best of friends. They work out together in the offseason. They were former teammates. They won 2 championships together. They're both a part of the Banana Boat crew with Carmelo Anthony and Chris Paul. I'm still not exactly sure what the Banana Boat is, but it's something, and those two are a part of it. I know that. So they're very close. But also, Dwayne Wade grew up in Chicago watching Michael Jordan and those Bulls. So when the media asked Dwayne Wade, can LeBron James surpass Michael Jordan's legacy, it was a bit like asking him which of his parents he liked better. Very hard question for Dwayne Wade to answer. And you would think that maybe he'd kind of sidestep the question, not give a direct answer, but he was very candid about it. Dwayne straight up just said, no, I don't think LeBron can do it. It's impossible, he said. The direct quote is, the only thing you can do is tie it. There's no 19th hole. Now, this is a very interesting quote from Dwayne Wade, and I really think he touched on something big here. Because when you think about Jordan versus LeBron, many people my age, millennials, 19, 20-year-old kids in college, will be very quick to tell you, no, LeBron James cannot surpass Michael Jordan. He can't be as good. And me included, I'm guilty of this. I'll tell you that. That's my first reaction. When I saw this story, my first reaction was like, oh, no, I don't know. LeBron can't pass Jordan. He won't do it. But if you think about it, that's actually a little bit ridiculous for people like me to say. Because people my age, when Michael Jordan was playing, we were max 3 and 4 years old. We didn't watch the guy play every night. We didn't watch any of his games on TV. We don't remember. But still, we will not hesitate to tell you that Michael Jordan is the best player to ever live, and no one can pass him. And why is that? You see, LeBron James is up against a lot more than just a basketball player here. In the years since Jordan has retired, there's been this glorification of him and this mystique that's developed surrounding him that exceeds just basketball. I mean, if you look at the Jordan brand and everything that means, if you take the Jumpman logo and show it to anyone all around the world, I bet more than 50% of the world's population could tell you, oh, that's Michael Jordan. That's how recognizable this guy is. That is the extent to which he has been worshipped and glorified. And it's really gotten to the point where Jordan is a sort of godlike figure in basketball. He's kind of just a mythical creature at this point. So LeBron James really has the odds stacked against him to try to be better than Michael Jordan. Now, that being said, I really think that if LeBron James is able to beat this Golden State team in the finals and win another NBA championship for Cleveland, I think there's a real discussion there. Because I just talked about how Jordan was glorified and hyped up and all this mystique, and a lot of that comes from, as stories are told down generations or what have you, they always get exaggerated a little bit. Storytelling from one person to the next, you always are going to exaggerate something. So that has a pile-up effect, and that leads to the image of Jordan that we have today. Well, at least that's part of it, because we know he was a terrific player, obviously. Still the best of all time. But if LeBron James beats this Golden State team, who, in my opinion, is the best roster ever assembled in the NBA, what has LeBron James not done? There's nothing. There's nothing. He's been MVP, he's won the championships, and now he will have beaten really the best team ever assembled. So, in my opinion, that is the big storyline of this year, at least as LeBron James is concerned. And this is something that he thinks about. We saw a quote from him not too long ago saying, "I'm chasing a ghost from Chicago." And really, that, above all else, is what got me excited for this basketball season, this NBA season. Because watching LeBron James chase down Michael Jordan's legacy is something that comes around once in a lifetime. These type of guys, Jordan and LeBron, do not come often. And really, as LeBron James gets a little bit older and gets maybe closer and closer to Jordan, we should really appreciate being able to watch it happen, because after LeBron James, I can assure you, we won't see anything like this for a while. So, looking forward on this season, some big games on the schedule. The Cavs tomorrow night are at the Toronto Raptors, so big game there. Remember, this is a Eastern Conference Finals rematch, so that should be an exciting game, and it's tough to go up and play in Toronto. They have a good atmosphere up there. I'm sure Drake will be jumping around on the sidelines being really annoying, so great, have that to look forward to. They play the Celtics on November 3rd, and I'd like to mention, since we're talking about LeBron versus Golden State, which I believe is the headline of this season, the Cavs play the Warriors 2 times in the regular season. The first time is on Christmas, national television on ABC. Should be a great game, and if you remember last year on Christmas, the Warriors kind of stomped on the Cavs. So I think it's going to be a little bit different this time around, and I'm really looking forward to that game. And the second time the Cavs play the Warriors is in Golden State. The game in Christmas is in Cleveland, if I forgot to mention that. The second time is in Golden State on January 16th. So circle those games on your calendar, and I think those games are really a microcosm of what this season is about. Because the NBA, in my mind, in the past 2 years, and now going into this year, has been all about LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Golden State Warriors. And it's sort of reminiscent of the Showtime Lakers versus Larry Bird and the Celtics back in the day. And when you have something like that, when you have two great teams constantly going at each other all season long, it makes for all season long and extended through other seasons for years and years, it makes for great basketball. So I really think that this is a great area of basketball that we're fortunate enough to be able to witness. And I'm looking forward to watching the next chapter of it this year. Now, I'll be back on air Sunday night. Expect me every Wednesday and Sunday night for now. That is tentative. I will have co-hosts on from time to time. I know I was late. I was alone tonight, but that will change. I will have co-hosts from time to time. It's been a good episode. I look forward to covering the Cavs all season long. Thank you for listening. This has been Cavs Cast. Bobby Talks Believeland.